Conquest of the Crystal Palace. You'll face the baddest, meanest enemies ever seen on the NES. Welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sean.
That's it. Two people's fine. We can make do.
Yeah, I'm not upset about it at all.
Yeah, that's whatever. So two people can conquest a Crystal Palace.
I mean, if you know what you're doing and you just work hard, we can do anything together.
But can one person conquest a Crystal Palace? Like, it feels like a conquest is usually like an army thing, you know, like a whole country is going to go conquest other countries or something. It's not usually like something like one person does.
I mean, it kind of depends on if you have like maybe a dog that's lived 1,000 years before he became your dog.
That'll help.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have something like that, you could conquest things, but otherwise, no. Otherwise, it's just not feasible.
And this game is a side-scrolling action platformer developed by Quest, and Quest went on to make a bunch of other games, but most notably, a lot of their talent would go on to then make the Ogre Battle and Final Fantasy Tactics games. So a lot more strategy than action platformery. But what we've got here today is not just, so action platformer I always think is like an interesting term because platformer in itself is usually like, yeah, this is a game about jumping, right? And like action games are usually like, this is a game about shooting. But this is not necessarily like an adventure game. So, Sean, help me out here. What is the distinct loop of this game?
Yeah, I always thought that action platformer and it's all like I wouldn't say it's over genreification, but there's very little difference. It shares some things with something like Mario and Zelda 2, and I think that there's like it's basically you go to the right and you don't jump on things. I think the actual difference between platformers and action platformers is that you can't kill enemies by jumping on them. Which seems silly. You have to shoot, or you have to do some kind of melee attack, and that's the difference.
Who's to say that jumping on anything wouldn't hurt it?
Well, I guess
you ever tried jumping on someone?
I haven't. I don't have that kind of vertical. And I try not to jump on people that are lying down because I feel like they're trying to sleep. So maybe it works if they lay down first.
And while we were talking about one person conquesting a Crystal Palace at the beginning of the episode, it's not our hero who has done the conquesting. It is the demon Zaras. He has taken over the Crystal Palace, and so Prince Farron and his guardian dog Zap have to reclaim the occupied kingdom across a variety of stages, really like 5 levels, but it like calling them levels is a little interesting because they're longer than like a Super Mario Brothers style level. So 5 is like selling it short. They're a bit more into it than that. But there are shops along the way to kind of upgrade the character ever so slightly. This isn't an RPG. But obviously, just like any good platformer, every level ends with a big boss fight that kind of is the gate that will prevent you from making progress. Let's just talk about Prince Farron for a second.
I don't want to talk about Prince Farron yet. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we'll talk about the controls.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. The controls of any platformer make or break the game. So he has a couple different sub-weapons, but most notably he has that sword and he has a jump. How are those two things in the grand scheme of platformers we've played on the NES?
They're fine. Like, it's tight. There are no complaints on the jump or the attack. Like, the hitboxes seem to work. The jump you can control in midair, but it's not floaty. thankfully we're past the point where that's sort of in question. Every other game, uh, you are able to upgrade both of these things. Some with like short term, like disposable upgrades, and some with more long term things. And you can get like a fireball move later, but the basics, they're nothing to complain about.
And the biggest, differentiator here, or the standout feature of the game, is that at the beginning of the game, when you start it, you kind of choose one of three crystals for Prince Farron that change a little bit about his like stats. They are there's the life crystal, the spirit crystal, and the flight crystal, and depending on which one you choose, it changes the game a little bit. Doesn't change the levels, doesn't change the types of enemies. It changes how Prince Farron behaves. Sean, which one did you go with?
Well, I read what they described, and first we need to acknowledge that my one-off comment earlier wasn't just me wanting to talk about a dog. Like, you were presented these choices by your dog, who apparently knows everything. Like, he's your lore dump. Like, the dog.
Are you saying the dog is suspicious a little bit?
I'm not saying it's suspicious. I think like it reminded me a lot of that scene in Anchorman where like the dog sort of does a long monologue to the bears. And if you remember that movie at all,
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's just the dog is very wise. He knows more about the world than you do. Like, apparently you as the main character would not be on this quest unless your dog told you what was going on. But anyway, he then gives you this choice, and the description of it is like pretty obvious that you should go with you get a ranged weapon off the bat. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is really only changing the first like few minutes of the game, because you can then buy the other upgrades almost immediately.
And that's surprising, right?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that they were that it was that small of just a change in initial conditions, but it's still cool, I guess, that you can do that.
Yes, I was expecting it to alter things a little more. I agree with you that you read the descriptions, and it, obviously life gives you more HP, and flight gives you a higher jump. I was expecting those things to matter a little more in the gameplay, like, more height makes it easier to dodge enemies. So, even though I'll be a little floaty or whatever, I'll be able to like get through the level faster and not have to like worry about every enemy I encounter. I can just kind of get around them. Whereas like life is like, yeah, I mastered the combat, so it doesn't matter. I'll take a little more hits, but I'll be able to fight. And then the spirit one gives you unlimited fireballs, and that just seems like the clear winner of the three, right?
Yeah, it's not even close.
It's not even close.
I mean, and there are some enemies that are not affected by them, but they are so few and far between that it's like, okay, I guess I gotta switch to the sword. And I think like it also is just, they are slow fireballs, so you may just want to stick with the sword for stretches of this game, but it's still like so versatile.
Right, I just feel like unlimited of something is crazy. It'd be like if the life one gave you unlimited HP, right? Like you would obviously pick that. It's just unlimited is such a stat changer compared to a slightly higher jump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can now talk about Zap in the game, at least, the dog. You explained kind of his reason for being in the game, but he's also not necessarily a playable character, but a summonable character, and you can summon Zap on the attack screen. One thing I didn't realize is that he has like you can see his health bar and everything, but that like you could also just retract him and use him when the moments are right.
Yeah,
so it's not something you want to just like call and have hang out in the beginning of the stage.
Yeah, because he does take damage pretty like he does just sort of flail about the screen pretty randomly, and he will target enemies, but he also just runs into oncoming traffic like maybe a dog would. But I think that I was sort of experimenting with the controls. I'm like, there's got to be a way I can take the dog back, because he's just draining, and I'm sure there's a boss coming up. So I found that, if you just sort of cycle through it again and select the upgrade as it would, like, if you were just selecting another upgrade, he does go back into the Pokeball. And I tried to like save him for boss fights, but I could never tell what he was actually doing because there's no boss health meter, and there isn't a lot of feedback with damage. So it's just sort of seeing the dog run around and jump at the enemies. And if you were to then buy the dog whistle upgrade, he then does that really fast.
Yes. But I will say that I think Zap was a little more useful than you're giving him credit for, particularly if you're dealing with enemies in later stages that like suck. There are enemies that are easily defeatable, and those are great. But then sometimes there's enemies.
There are a lot
that
of
are
enemies
like,
that suck in this game.
Yeah, exactly. Just a bit more tedious, or things that like will hit you, and you just get like I'm thinking about. I think it's even on the might be second or third stage. There's like these hands that just are like attached to the floor, and they're not like, I don't even know what you can do with them, or if you can even fight back on them.
You can kill them, but
okay,
they are
but like it's better for Zap
annoying
to handle that.
Yeah, that's true. Do they grab Zap? Because I never really deployed Zap against them.
Well, see, the problem is with Zap's attack animation, it wouldn't be communicated to you if he's being grabbed, because he sticks with the enemy that he's attacking anyway.
Ah, yes, yeah.
So it's not really. I would say overall, while the combat in this game is just fine, it's serviceable. The like animation of the combat in general leaves a lot to be desired. It has that issue with the sword where like you can't quite tell if like the edge of your sword is actually connecting with the enemies. It's not a terrible hitbox or whatever. It's just one of those things where it's like, well, like what is the hitbox the entirety of the sword, or is my swing like just barely missing? I hate that in games, and that happens a lot on not just NES games.
I think it's also just like audio feedback isn't quite there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like overall it leads a little bit more to be desired in that category. The next thing I wanted to talk about, I guess you could call it an economy, but really it's about the shops. There are mid-stage shopkeepers. I think it's the same girl every time, named Kim, and she'll sell you food, items, and weapons. And she's the shopkeeper, so you can buy these things from her, but she's also the like QNN, which is presumably a play on CNN. Maybe they have something in Japan that has an NN as well. She's the news reporter there, and that's the cutest part of the game, is her giving like this little like I don't know. It's like meta, but it's also like because there's no reason for them to have TVs, right? Like, so who's this broadcast for? It's directly to the player, and
we weren't given that in the lore dump, like what kind of media landscape they're in. But I guess they do have a news network that spans all the planes of existence. The one thing that I thought was funny about that whole like concept is you have to sort of linger in the shop for it to happen.
Yes.
It just like it's not after you buy anything. It's not as soon as you jump in. It's like you could be mid-scroll, like just trying to get to something to buy, and they'll be like, do you want to listen to the news? And like, of course you want to listen to the news. And there's some like not, I wouldn't say, they're like little hints sometimes. Otherwise it's just funny stuff. Yeah.
Knowing that Zap and the shop are optional things within the game that obviously greatly help the player, you think there's any merit for like a no zap or a no shop challenge run? Is that worth recommending, or is that just like?
Have we ever recommended anything like that?
No, never. I'm just saying, like, it's... Well, I don't think
I'm
we've
sure
ever
they
had to,
exist.
like... Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? It's like Super Mario Brothers, you can't recommend, like, a no-jump run.
Yeah, but it's like, you could do, like, the warpless. So if you're
That's
doing,
true,
like,
but...
speed runs, I'm sure there's speed run categories for, like, no shop
There is
or anything
all
like
levels,
that.
you know, yeah. Mm-hmm. In Super Mario Brothers, all levels.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the game communicate the danger of the enemies well? And I don't mean how strong they are. I mean, like, sometimes in platformers, enemies just appear as soon as the screen scrolls, and it's very fast. Like, do you have a fair shot against the spawning of enemies in this action platformer?
Sometimes. I think that the spawn behavior, like when in the middle of a level, like when you're just sort of moving around, is fine. And there's actually long stretches where you don't see anything. But then there are some, I guess, like planned fights, or like more. I wouldn't call them. I guess there's one that is a boss, but it's just a bunch of spiders, and that was the worst boss, because it's literally just a bunch of spiders that kind of pop out of nowhere. There's no like telegraphing of where they're gonna come from. They're just gonna come all over the place, and you're just gonna keep getting hit. And I think that was part of. I got annoyed, and when you were earlier describing just some of the frustrations, that was definitely one of them.
Yeah, I would agree that on the most part, the game doesn't have any like cheap spawns or anything. There are just tough enemies
and tough setups with like anytime you're running into falling water or lava, it is probably the most tedious shit in the game.
Yeah, even from the very first level, the water is there. But like I feel like the because those aren't enemies, right? So you can't even hurt them. But like, yeah, some of the more like challenging platforming of the game, it's like it's never about like pitfalls or anything, or like, oh, there's gonna be a tricky jump. It's usually about like, well, there's an enemy on this thing, and I've got to get there. And, you know, so on and so forth. It's like, it requires a little bit more thinking. Good players will know what to do. It's not so challenging that it's an auto death or something like that. But then the other thing, which I noticed right away in the first level, the first boss is nowhere near on the same difficulty scale as the level itself was. Do you agree with me, or was I just really bad at this boss fight?
This is the one with the guy in the ground and like the lightning bird above.
Yeah, which
right?
is a really cool combo. Don't get me wrong. I thought that was a very interesting boss because the guy on the ground is sending the electricity to the flying creature, so that then like charges it up to throw a lightning bolt at you. So it's very involved. I liked thinking about dodging it and everything. I just feel like attacking both of those enemies was actually pretty tricky.
So. Excuse me. Here's what I did at first. I just had Zap take care of the guy on the ground, and then it was just the bird, and the bird was like almost impossible to hit. It took forever because it'll dive bomb you, and it immediately jumps back up. Like and again, there's no rhythm to it. Maybe it's maybe there's a pattern, but there's no actual rhythm to it. It'll just randomly dive bomb and will immediately go right back up. So you have to be pixel perfect on a jump timing to then hit this bird, and you gotta do it like 4 or 5 times. So yeah, that was another frustrating part.
Yes, and it's not like to say that it you overcome it and everything. I just felt like the battle took a really long time compared to the stage itself.
And that's part of the like vibes. Like we were talking about falling water and falling lava, like the whole like half of the final level, and I'm not trying to skip ahead or anything, but half the final level in just raw time that you spend is just waiting for falling lava to stop falling. And it's just not like, sure, it's like, oh, testing your patience is not what I came here for.
Absolutely. Or yeah, exactly. Because it's testing your patience, not in the sense of like dying over and over again and retrying the level. It's testing your patience in the fact that you have to wait for that perfect moment where the lava isn't falling, because it usually falls in like, increments of 3 or 4 at a time. Right. Okay. And so you just have to kind of stand there, pass it, wait for the next one. They're grouped together. You mentioned the spider boss, and I mentioned the first boss. Outside of those two, though, it's kind of interesting. The rest of the bosses are really like giant sprite enemies that I found to be not only like awesome designs, but a little more like not easier, but like
they were
simpler boss
understandable.
Fights.
Yeah.
Yes, understandable, digestible. There's a clear like risk and reward mechanic of like attacking often, but you have a better chance of being hit. Whereas you can kind of in the stage like run to whatever direction. It's a larger stage with a scroll on this boss fight. You're not locked to a specific screen.
You could like seek shelter among some destructible platforms when like they and so there's more of a like that's a strategy that in a more typical action platformer sense.
But I really like these boss sprites specifically. They feel we've seen big boss sprites even in like the Mega Man style games too, but it just feels larger than life compared to what the rest of the game was offering. And I think that's if you have the ability to do that in your game, I think that feels really cool and pluses up these segments when there really is only just, no matter how long they take, there is only 5 levels. So it feels like a big deal.
Yeah, I think a big part of there's also the following level after the like the spider one, which is basically just a bunch of, it's almost entirely lava or some kind of plasma. Is another like this is just too much. Like everything can kill you. I think a lot of the visuals are really cool in these parts of the game, but are also just lots of little annoyances. I'm kind of rambling here, but I found myself annoyed at this level too.
Interesting. Yeah. I think overall, the game itself doesn't have too many like wow factors in the grand scheme of like the catalog that we've played. So I think that's why like calling these things out feels unremarkable, but again, it's like worth calling out.
Thank you.
So let's see. We talked about most of like the game functions. I feel like there's probably something to mention about like development of the game or whatever, or maybe there's more to those Q&N segments that would have been like would have helped to just maybe describe to our audience here that like I just feel like that's the only moment of lore dump and of like cheeky dialogue that kind of like gives you tips without being like as direct as like some games are just press A to attack, right? It's like it's not like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like the game is trying to plus itself up from the older days of like in the original run of the show, like Ninja Kid and stuff like that. Those were just really bare bones. Like we were just impressed by the game mechanics, and now games like Conquest of the Crystal Palace, it's like, yeah, we've seen these mechanics before, so how are you going to iterate on it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the memorable things about this game are more just it's, I guess atmosphere is the word, but the environments are kind of unique. There's one that's genuinely like disturbing where it's just a bunch of like I maybe they're ghosts, maybe they're some kind of giant organism that's made of other bodies. Like I guess this was the level the plane of hungry ghosts or something along those lines. I forgot. They mention it in the Q&N segment, the name of the circle of hell, wherever the hell you are.
Right.
But there's a lot of cool visuals going on, and the dog design and just the Q&N segments, like, yeah, they all give it some personality. It's just what's going on around that with the actual mechanics is like, yeah, like it's all dress up.
Now, would you believe that the U.S. version, this is one of those rare instances where it was actually made easier than the Japanese? Yeah, like I'm not sure what was exactly changed, but it says not only was the game's difficulty reduced, but a cheat code that obviously isn't included in the manual or anything, but must have been provided through one of the video game magazines. A cheat code was added into the game for the NES release, where at the title screen, you basically hold B plus select, and then switch it from B plus select to A plus select, and then you enter like a debug mode where you can change all sorts of things, how much gold you have, what items are in your inventory. You can have lives up to 99. You can just basically edit the game to be whatever you want it to be.
So they weren't afraid of rentals at all.
No, I guess not.
Because I can imagine if you have all that, you can beat this in a day.
Sure, yeah. I guess, again, you have to know about the cheat, which is like another thing that always, like, I used to buy Tips and Tricks magazine, and like that's how I found my cheats. I guess theoretically before that, I did have Cheat Code Central, that website. I would go on AOL, which is now gone.
Game Sages.
Rest in peace to AOL.
Yeah. Canadian AOL.
Yeah, Canadian AOL. And, I would go on those websites and I would read the cheats and it would be like, okay, great. It's straightforward. Like, hit these arrows, hit these buttons. But like, who was figuring that out? I couldn't figure it out. Was the developer just providing them, or were people really just like brute forcing their way through this stuff? It was all very fascinating. I would like to see somebody who was discovering those cheats back in the day, like, just talk about that on like a 5-minute YouTube thing. It doesn't have to be a documentary. Just give me 5 minutes on YouTube of your time to explain how you did that.
No, it has to be optimized for engagement, so it needs to be at least 32 minutes long, Mike.
There was also one other change from the Japanese to the American version, and that was that the realm of hungry ghosts, as you described it, that whole like level was kind of changed to be a little more friendly to kids. It was a little scary in the Japanese version. The realm of hungry ghosts.
It's already pretty scary.
Yeah, but those hungry ghosts, instead of them being like, I don't know, what are they? Bugs, creatures. They were ghosts for real, like little like kids, skeleton bones, and there was the animated background things that like look like giant plants that animate like kind of, I don't know, like opening their mouth and closing it. They hit it well, but instead of them being plants, they were just like giant skull faces that would just basically be screaming at the player. So all that stuff was changed.
I mean, we've seen skulls.
Yep, all skulls. We can't show skulls around here.
Okay. What did you think of the final level, and did you finish it?
No, I didn't finish the final level. I don't know if I could have put a little more time into it to get there, but my thoughts of the final level is it's kind of weird how empty the final level is of enemies, and that it becomes just more of a platforming challenge.
Yeah, I think part of it, and I maybe this is why, again, like I had to call out the lava falls, because then this hasn't happened in the game before. It now becomes a maze, like a 2D side-scrolling maze, and I think it's just because there's no actual, like, you can't keep track of where you are in a real spatial reality and stuff like this, and I tap out, because I guess you have to. I kept like jumping onto this flight of stairs and fighting this boss that I thought like would just keep running away, and then you would chip away at it again in the next fight, and then you would chip away at it again in the next fight, and I think I did this like 5 times, and nothing was happening, and then I realized you have to just keep going down the stairs instead of going up the stairs, and I was like, you know what? I don't have time for this.
Yeah, they were doing the original Super Mario Brothers approach. The final Bowser level, you have to go through a specific, a specific path to get to Bowser. But just like how I kind of felt like that in the Super Mario Brothers level, it's not communicated to the player well. I mean, there is obviously a loop, and you will notice it, but it's not communicated to the player at any other point in the game that would matter. And so I didn't like it in Super Mario Brothers, and I don't like it here. It's funny. I don't know if I said that in the Super Mario Brothers episode. I think that's the weakest part of the entire game.
Yeah, and
The
it
final
almost
level.
seems like more punishing than like punitive than it should be if you're going to put what looks like a boss or like mini boss in this room that you end up having to push through if you go the wrong way. So just silly stuff. And then on like the topic of just little nitpicks, in the beginning, the dog kind of tells you that you kind of have to save the princess, right? Like there's a princess. Is there not a
Yes,
princess?
there
There's
is a princess.
You never see a princess in this game. Did you see a princess?
I never saw a princess, but now you know I agree with you. I just was like, yeah, all video games have princesses. Now I have to like think about that. Like,
I'm pretty sure that the dog tells you that that dude that you kill at the end stole a princess, and then like you would ostensibly rescue the princess. But when you beat the game, you know, because you know what we just said, I didn't actually beat the game myself, but I watched the end of the game. You never see a princess. I think that's kind of a half measure.
yeah. So look in here. No mention of a princess. I think you maybe be confused that because the guy you play as was the prince.
But doesn't
You
the
know?
dog tells you about a princess?
I don't think so. I feel like the dog tells you that he used to not be a dog. Maybe is that what he was saying at the beginning? He was saying like he used to be the guardian of the palace and now he's like a dog.
I think he's always
is that
been
like a bad
dog.
translation? Yeah.
Before I escaped, I'm watching it right now.
Yeah.
At no
He says,
point
now
does he
I
say
can
that he
reveal
was
the
a human.
truth. He says, I can reveal the truth. I was once a keeper of the Crystal Palace, right? Now, he could still just have been a dog, but like, why would he have to reveal that truth to us, right? Like, sounds like he was saying he was once like, you know, your bodyguard.
Well, you can be a body dog. You can be a body dog.
Okay, sure, but like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit of like a weird, gigantic reveal lore dump thing, and also like, how much time has passed? He's like, you were the prince. Like, it's like he's still kind of young. Is this like 5 months? Like, is it 5 days? Like, does the guy did the prince land on his head? Like,
All right. As I'm watching this, I now don't see any mention of a princess.
but you're not wrong to assume video
skimmed
games have
through
trained you
Prince.
that there's princesses.
No, now I feel like I've duped myself. So, it's okay. But I still think he was always a dog, regardless.
Do you think there's an alternate game here where the crystals you choose, again, because it's all about the conquest of the Crystal Palace, there are more crystals to choose from, and kind of like you can choose any of them to start and you'll be able to play the game, but then like after each level, you gain a new crystal that like eventually builds you up to like your final form before you get to the final stage? Like, that's kind of where I like expected the game to go, but then you just get to the shop and they're there.
Yeah, it's kind of the fact that it's named Conquest of the Crystal Palace, and there's only one mention of the crystals, and then you just start the game as if there were no crystals. It's odd. I'll give you that. I don't know what other crystals there could be. Like maybe there'd be a crystal of whistles, and then you just start with the whistle. I don't know. Yeah,
I hear
a
ya.
different version of this game could have that.
And a different version of this podcast would just end right now. However, our podcast continues with the Essential Games List. Conquest of the Crystal Palace is not essential. I don't even know if it's like hidden gem territory, but it is absolutely recommended to fans of the action platformer, which feels weird because I was having a tough time describing even what that was in the beginning of the episode. But like fans of these kinds of games, if they miss this one somehow, I think it's totally worth playing through, assuming you're already like you've beaten all the classics in this genre. So if you played through the Castlevanias and the Ninja Gaidens and all that, I feel like it's probably worth your time to also check out Conquest of the Crystal Palace. I just don't think I'll be recommending it to the larger group because at the end of the day, it is kind of shallow. like the game itself. It offers a few things to like give us things to talk about on this episode, but as you can see, we were trying to stretch those because the game is otherwise unremarkable. So for me, it's an easy answer. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I liked some of the systems. I liked the versatility of not versatility. I liked the system of selecting what you were doing. It was much more. It felt much more polished than I think we really touched upon it in certain points. However, in general, I think that the combat is leaves a lot to be desired. The dog is less useful than you would be led to believe. Even though Mike said the opposite. I think there's some cool vibes here, but otherwise, I can definitely see this being somebody's favorite game from their childhood. But I think that's a little bit of rose-colored glasses. Not essential for me either.
We mentioned the Quest was the developer and that some certain people will go on to make some pretty prolific games. But Quest's own catalog, some interesting games, notably the Ogre Battle series, starting on the Super Nintendo, Ogre Battle, The March of the Black Queen, and then Tactics
I've never
Ogre.
played those.
So, yeah, but do you know, because I didn't know this, the Ogre franchise is like two separate things. So, like, there's Ogre Battle games, and then there's Tactics Ogre games, and they're both strategy games, but Ogre Battle games are real-time strategy games, and Tactics Ogre games are turn-based strategy games. I think that's interesting, right? There's not another, I can't think of, like, XCOM also doing a real-time strategy, did they?
I don't think so. I mean, no, they did, but it was very spin-offy. I think it was
okay.
XCOM the Bureau or something, but that was more like a squad-based third-person shooter sort of thing. But I don't know enough about Ogre anything to even have had that like in my head, so this is all news to me.
I just think it's interesting to have like basically the same game, right? But because they continue to like almost cycle through them, right? Of like battle versus tactics games, like
these all happen in the same world.
I don't know, so I can't comment. I'd have to imagine so, but why not?
Sure.
But it's like funny. It's like the Fire Emblem series is always turn-based tactical role-playing game. It would be interesting to see a Fire Emblem real-time strategy game as well. I feel like these strategy games can kind of lend themselves to multiple things in the genre.
Fire Emblem Dynasty Warriors.
Fire Emblem Warriors was that, right?
Is that a thing? Did that happen?
Yeah, Fire Emblem Warriors. Yeah. Remember Nintendo went on a kick there for a minute, and they were like,
I knew there was a Hyrule Warriors, but I didn't know they did a Fire Emblem one.
Yeah, there was a Fire. I was waiting for Animal Crossing Warriors. I can't believe we didn't get it.